annihilation.
Johnny, this bloody war in Ukraine, is it just going to keep going on and on? Oh, the war in the Ukraine, Johnny. Yeah, well, we had to mention it eventually, but let me put this to you, Johnny, first up. Johnny, imagine you got two neighbours in a suburban street. Yeah, right, neighbours. And they've been fighting for years. They've been bloody throwing Molotov cocktails and bloody shooting one another, doing all this sort of stuff. Yeah, right. Would you expect the police to have intervened by now, Johnny? The police? Well, yeah. The police had come. Well, why the hell has nothing been done about the bloody Ukraine disaster? Oh, who's bloody policing this fucking war? What about the United Nations? The United Nations? Oh, the United Nations. Just seems to go on and on and on. This could go on for bloody years. It's already gone on for years. We just didn't hear about it in the same context. But Johnny, the missiles crossed the bloody border. They went into another country.
Russian missile is said by US intelligence to have landed in territory under NATO protection in Poland.
And what we started to hear was a report coming out of the Associated Press that two missiles, or a number of missiles, it's straight over the border.
Russian missiles reportedly striking a farm in Poland near the Ukrainian border.
Member of NATO making the strike, the first time a Russian missile has crossed into NATO territory during its conflict with Ukraine.
I mean, we're all sitting around looking at these maps, Johnny, of different countries on the maps, and we say as long as the war stays within this little bloody area, then we won't intervene. If there's a missile go over the border, holy hell, it's a calamity. Well, the calamity's been bloody unfurling for bloody years.
We start tonight with breaking news. A senior U.S. intelligence official says...
Is that bloke from Terminator 2, Johnny?
A senior U.S. intelligence official says that Russian missiles have crossed into NATO member Poland.
He does look a bit like that bloke from there. But, Johnny, this is bloody serious.
The Polish government has not confirmed that report, but we do understand that Poland's prime minister has called an emergency security council meeting.
By Jesus, he looks like him. So as long as no missiles or fighting takes place over these little lines we've drawn on the map, then everything's bloody, yeah, that's okay. Johnny, I don't know about that, for Christ's sake. But by Jesus, if there's a missile that goes over the border, well, there's going to be hell to pay, but that's just bloody ridiculous. That sounds like bullshit to me.
You are the last best hope of Earth. We ask you to protect it.
But this just seems to happen in Europe, Johnny. The US has given them billions of bloody dollars worth of weapons to fight their proxy war. Yeah, I've said it, a proxy war. Is that stupid or what?
Does America go to war for profit or for ideological reasons? One way to answer that question would be to look at the past.
And just putting it quietly, Johnny, the US industrial military complex, they're making a bloody fortune out of this war. Yeah, a bloody fortune.
He's not joking.
And that doesn't help.
The military-industrial complex controls America. Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, radically different from each other, but they all have one thing in common. All these presidents have perpetuated this state of permanent war and continued to feed the unquenchable thirst of the military-industrial complex.
So, with things like funding the Ukraine war with Russia, please explain to people what that means and why we're sending so much money over to Ukraine.
How did America come under the influence of the military-industrial complex? How is it that this permanent defense industry maintains control over the political system? And are we falling into another trap to keep us in forever war?
Weapons and arms, they keep making more and more profit and just get us right to the point where it gets squirrely. Well, Putin won't do it. He won't do it. He won't do it. But if he does it, there's no pulling back from that. And the only reason why we would ever get to that point is because people are trying to make more money.
That is certainly a major driver. I have no doubt about that.
The rise of the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex is the network of vested interests. The Pentagon, the defense industry, lobbyists, think tanks, and politicians that benefit from the excessive production of weapons and the state of permanent war in the United States. Before World War II, American war efforts were supported by independent industry. This changed under President Franklin Delano Roosevelt with the establishment of the War Production Board. This cooperation between government and the defense industry and the massive production capacity that came with it was necessary in order to win the total war against the Axis powers. But when the war ended, the massive production capacity of the defense industry was not dismantled. Instead, the massive production capacity was repurposed to fight the rising threat of the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
So either you want to stop it or you don't, Johnny, just because there's a couple of bloody missiles flew over the boundary line and it's all concerning now. That doesn't make sense at all. Well, Johnny, it's going to be bloody interesting to see if a nuclear war does break out. But thanks for your time.